is that I have found a resource which I like. It's called Internet Settings, and it's made by sorry, let's go here. It's made by this guy. And believe it or not, I've actually found a bug in this resource because I prepared my session for tomorrow where I'm talking about Pester. And while I wrote this quite a while ago, like 9 months ago. And before my session, I updated all my tests and like kind of improved them and so on. So while writing tests, I found a bug, and I'm going to fix that bug now, hopefully. So I found this repository. I like it, but it has this one bug that I find annoying. So usually when I want to contribute something to someone else's project, I always start by opening an issue. So on GitHub here, we have a bunch of tabs, and the second tab is called Issues. So I'm going to click on that one. And this will bring me to all the open issues. This is a really small module, so no one has ever had any had any issues with it so far, apparently. It could also be that no one is using it. But anyway, I'm going to write some message. So let's say test target resource fails when adding both two zones for the same site. So this resource is a DC resource to control internet settings like the trusted sites and restricted sites and so on for the current user by adding register values. So I used this one when I tried to mount a network share as a system, and I had to make it trusted to not get the credential pop-up thingy. So I'm going to give it a header, and I'm just going to write something like a message trying to explain my problem. So if I try to add both HTTP and FTP protocols for same site, the test will fail or will wrongly return true. So the problem here is if I add a site to trusted sites and I have to specify a protocol. It could be star for any protocol. It could be HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, and so on. And if I add one site to both HTTP and FTP, there is a bug in the code making it return true. So it's going to create the first one, but not the second one. I'm also saying that I will open a pull request with tests sharing the problem or something. So a few things to note when I want to contribute to someone else's project is that they might already be aware of this. They might have some plans that they are refactoring, changing something or something. So I shouldn't assume that my help is always wanted. So I always ask if someone wants your help before trying to contribute to something, because it helps avoid a lot of frustration when someone puts in a lot of hours doing something they think is really good, and then when they send it in, the receiver or maintainer of the project says like, yeah, but that's not at all the direction I intended for my project, so I'm not interested. So I try to open up an issue and ask if your help is wanted. So I'm just going to submit this. And then hopefully I would get a result quite quickly. So I'm not actually going to respond to my own query, but imagine that someone replied here and said, yeah, please open a pull request. So once I've done that, I need to do the fork, and I've already done this because I might not have internet, but the fork button is not there. It's up here. So if I click the fork button, GitHub will create a copy of this repository on my account. So I'm going to click the fork button. Usually I would see a GIF animation, but I've already forked this one, so it's kind of instant. You can now see that the name up here changes, and we can also see that I'm in another URL. So now you can see that I'm in GitHub-simon-demo, which is my demo account, and we can see that the repository is simon-demo/internet settings, which is my copy, and we can also see that there's a reference to the original repository. So it says forked from. So once I'm done with that, I go down here. So this is HTTPS. I can click there and choose SSH instead, but I'm using HTTPS, so I'm going to keep it that way. And this is the URL for my actual repository. So I'm just going to click on this little button here. And it was a copy, so now I have that URL copied to my clipboard. I'm going into PowerShell. And I browse to a directory where I want to download this repository. So I'm just going to make sure it's not there already. Cool. So I do the command git clone, and I just paste the URL to the repository I want to clone. Doing that, it downloads my repository. And now I have a new folder. So if I list the contents here, you can see that I have the internet settings folder here. So I'm just going to cd into that one. And now you can see I'm just going to scroll a bit. See that I'm in the master branch of this repository. So I'm going to switch to the dev branch. Like this, and now you can see I'm in the dev branch because I want to base my work out of the development branch.
Did you just create a dev branch? Or?
I just switched to it because it's already created.
Okay. Can
So,
you get a list of them from the command prompt?
yes, absolutely. So git branch will list my local branches. And the first one is green and has an asterisk, meaning that's the current one. And I can also do git branch -a, which will list all my branches. And what we can see here, it's a little bit hard to see in the projector, but these two are my local branches. And then I have 4 entries actually, pointing to remotes. So it says remotes/origin/head, zone site, dev, and master. So there are remotes pointing to something else. And that's important to understand when we're trying to do fetch and merge later on.
So you only copy 2 of those 4 to your local?
Yeah, the Git client only lists the branches that I've checked out so far. So if I switch to another branch, it will add that to the list of branches locally. But if I run the git branch -a before I do git checkout dev, I would only see master in my local, and then I see which ones are available on my remote sites.
But you, at this point in time, you cannot change to zone site branch.
I should be able to change to zone site branch. So git checkout zone site. I switched to zone site, and now when I do a list of all branches, zone site is also listed as one of my local branches. So the Git client adds, this is basically a text file, and the client adds the entries to this text file as I check them out. Or
would it then actually download what is in that branch?
No, so when I clone something, I download the whole repository. Like, yeah, all the branches, all the changes, all the history, everything from like the beginning of time for that repository at least. So now locally here, so if I go back to, so I check out the dev branch again and I do git log. Got log won't work. Git log. I will get the log entries, so everything that's been changed in this repository since it was created and who changed it and so on. And this is like all the entries, and I can move back and forth between them. So I have a full copy of the whole repository. And that's the thing with distributed version control system, that everyone has a full copy of the full repository, and you can work totally offline. So once I've done the clone, I don't need to be online again until I want to update my changes, upload my changes. All right, I can also do git remote and add a -v for verbose, and it tells me that I have 2 entries in my remotes. It's actually only one remote, but it's one address for uploading and one address for downloading. And in this case, I use the same address. I can also add a second V. I just assume that it stands for very verbose, but I don't know. No, quite. Oh, dash. No, it should be VV. Capital VV. All right, let's see if it's changed later on. So what I want to do is to create a second remote. So I want to link from my local repository to the original repository on GitHub, so I can download any changes implemented by the author or the maintainer. So I go back to GitHub, I click on this little link where it says forked from, and that will take me back to the original repository. So I copy the URL from this one, go back to PowerShell and do git remote add. So this adds a remote. The syntax for the Git client is a bit weird because it's ported from Unix, so it's basically Unix commands. So I do git remote add, I give it a name, I'm going to call it upstream. I could call it anything I want. And then I just paste in the URL to my upstream. So if I do git remote dash verbose, it shows me that I now have 4 entries, which is 2 remotes. And if I do VV, it was supposed to. Let's try. No? All right. So whatever I'm missing, I'm not sure, but the point is, when I do VV, it was supposed to show me which of. Oh, hang on. Ah, that was the one I wanted. Sorry for that. A bit confused sometimes. So what I tried to show you before is that I can do git branch -a just like I did before, but now I add the VV for very verbose. Or I think it stands for very verbose. It's a bit hard to see on a projector, but now I have all my remotes that is connected to a local zone. And on the local zone here, you can see that I have, or you probably can't see, but I'm telling you that I have the name of the connected remote repository. So here I can see if I copy this one to something like the ISE, and we can read it. So it says like the zone site branch is on this commit, and it is tracking the origin zone site. So this means if I do a change to the zone site and I push them, the origin zone site will be the default remote for that branch. So now I have, if I do git remote -v again, I have my 2 remotes, and I want to download and implement all the changes done in my upstream repository. So if someone did any changes there, I can go do git fetch upstream, and this will download all these changes in the upstream repository, but it won't merge them into my current branch. It will only download them. So now I can do git merge upstream /dev, and this will take all the changes made to upstream dev since I last synced, or the changes that I don't have on my local repository, and merge them into my current branch, which is the dev branch.
And do you have to merge them to be able to see them, or?
Might be.
Because you said you download them.
Yep.
And can you check them out then in your branch, or do you have to merge them to actually be able to see it in your local?
So I can do git checkout upstream dev, and I can move into the branch in my upstream, and this is just the index for the latest commit that I'm currently at. And I can do like git log and so on. And I can go back in time in my upstream repository, and then just as it says here, I can do git checkout -b and create a new branch, and that will create a new branch from that point in time from my upstream. So I can look at the changes, and I can kind of investigate if I have any conflicts and so on before I merge. Instead of using git fetch and then git merge, I can use git pull and just point to the upstream, and that will do a fetch and a merge. So then I don't get the option of trying to compare the changes before I merge them. So I'm going back into my dev branch.
So what's happening in the file system whenever you do the checkout? It actually updates all files in the directories if you're looking at them?
Yeah, it does. We can look at that later on, because I'm going to do a change and then we'll see it. So as I said before, we want to make all my changes in a dedicated branch. So I want to create a new branch on my local repository that I can do all the changes to, because that branch will be directly associated with my pull request. So I do git checkout, but I want to tell it that I want to create a new branch. So I add a -b for a branch, and I'm just going to call it something like issue number 1, because it refers to the issue number 1 that I just created. So this does switch to new branch issue number 1, and now I can implement and make changes here.
So you're saying that an issue actually on GitHub is a branch?
No, not at all. I'm just naming the branch the same as my issue, so I easily can figure out which one is which. But I can call it whatever I want to. No problem. So I'm going to cd into the test directory, and in here I have a test file, and I'm going to copy. Actually, I might have already done this to see now, but anyway. So I have apsconf git demo and the zone site. So this is my modified file, and I just copy it to my unmodified file. So this, I have that, cool. So now you can see that I added some code to, or I replaced this file, and it's now a little bit larger than before. So I just added a few lines of code. My prompt turns red, and it says that I have one modified file, and it's red because I haven't added them to the staging yet. So I can do git status, and it says that I have one modified file. This is usually red, but I've changed the color to make it work on a projector. It might be hard to read anyway, but it says that this file is modified. If I want to know what was modified, I can do git diff and just give it a name. And this will give me like a text output saying, here is the context, so here's how the file looks before, and this green part is what was added, and here is what comes after. So it will show me red text for lines that were removed and green text for lines that were added. And Git works per line. So if I change like one letter in a line, it will show me this line was removed and this line was added, and the difference will be that the letter is added. So from a command line, I can see what I added. I'm going to do git add and add my zone site. And now my prompt turns green because I have this file added to the stage. So if I go git status again, it says that I have one file modified that. So now it says changes to be committed before it says changes like modified or something. So now my changes are staged. And I'm going to save these in a snapshot by creating a commit. So I'm just going to go git commit and -m and give it a string. So added tests for multiple protocols in same site. This says that it created a commit for me. One file added and 8 rows were added to that file. Now my prompt is back to normal again, and I can do new modifies, and I can always go back to this point in time no matter what I do. Or almost no matter what I do. So now I want to upload this change to GitHub. And what I do is running the command git push. And that gives me an error. And I can never learn this string, so I just do git push. It tells me you can't do git push because the issue #1 branch doesn't exist on your GitHub remote. So you need to run this command instead to tell GitHub that you should upload the whole branch. So I'm just going to copy this one and paste it. It's a lot faster than trying to type it and remember the syntax. A rule for remembering Git syntax is that every time you have a parameter that is more than one letter, it's usually 2 dashes, and when it's one parameter, it's usually 1 dash, or one character is 1 dash. So 1-A, or 1-B, but -- verbose, since verbose is a word and not a char, or a string and not a char. So now I've updated uploaded my changes. If I go to GitHub and browse back to the repository, so this is my fork. We'll see that there was, I recently pushed to the issue #1 branch 1 minute ago. And if I click on branches here, we'll see that I have a new branch called issue #1. So I now uploaded the branch. And what I'm going to do is to create a pull request. So if I click new pull request, now this is something that's kind of important. I have 2 things I have to choose here. And this is called a base fork and a head fork. So the base fork is the fork that I will base my work from. So this is where the changes will end up. And the maintainer of this project probably won't be happy if I ask him to implement these changes in the master branch. GitHub would always default to the default repository in that the default branch in that repository, and the default branch is by default master. So if I haven't changed it, or if they haven't changed it, it will be the master. So make sure that you always change this to whatever you actually want to commit or to suggest the changes should be implemented. And then I choose a head fork, which is the head I put on top of the body. And the thing I want to submit is my issue. So I choose my issue #1. And this will say that I did 1 commit. This is the commit message. when I did it, who did it, and these are the changes. And it will also show me a diff, like what was changed. These are the files that were added. And in the future, we'll be able to have a conversation around this one. So I'm just going to create a pull request. I get the message and pull. There we go. So PR referenced in number 1. So in pull requests, I have this way of referencing other stuff. So if I do like a hashtag and a number, it'll reference to an issue or another pull request, or I can reference like a specific commit or something. So in this case, you see that I get intelligence telling me that this is the issue that I will link to. And once I create a pull request, the maintainer will be notified, and it says that there are no conflicts, so we could merge this. So now the maintainer just have one button to click if he wants to, and he will implement my changes in his repository. I'm also running AppWeigher for continuous integration, so AppWeigher will actually execute the tests and tell me if they're passing or not. And if I go back to my issue, you'll see that someone referenced this issue. So I get a link or an entry in the issue referencing to the pull request. So this way, if someone follows my issue, they can click here and get to my pull request and see what David.
Yeah, one interesting thing that GitHub does is if in your commit message title or in the body, if you type fix $, the number, they will automatically close the issue for you whenever you merge the pull request. So they kind of pick up on that specific kind of wording.
Exactly. So in the commit messages, I can do a few like commands. One of them is like fix, or I think it resolves, and a few others, and then hashtag and a number. If my pull request is approved, the issue will be automatically closed. So what I kind of missed to show you here is I should had edited this one and said like WIP or something, or I can do that if I want to. So I can rename a pull request, and this way I'm telling the maintainer that this is not ready yet, but I want to share my work with you so that you can be able to review my code during the process. So this way I will hopefully prevent him to implement any changes that I'm not really done with yet. No, this is the pull request number. So the pull request is named number 2, and so on. So it's just gonna increment.
One question about how much detail do you put into your commit messages? What's your experience with other open sources or projects?
So I don't put that much information in my commit messages. Usually when I do something like like an opening something marked as a work in progress, I'm just going to be really brief in these messages, and then I'm going to do several commits. And once I agree with the maintainer that we're done and these changes should be implemented, I do something called a squash. So what I will do is I will go back to my repository and I will redo the last commits. And I do this with a command in Git called rebase. So I rebase my repository, and then as a commit message, I can do like a multi-line string saying this is the changes. And then I can put like, I don't know, 2 or 3 lines of code, or 2 or 3 lines of text. But I'm not very verbose in the commit messages. I'm just trying to because the whole idea with the version control is to answer the question, at least in my point, answer the question, what changed, when did it change, who changed it, and why did it change? And the first three ones are automatically answered by Git. So the fourth question is, why did we change something? And I'm trying everything, every time I write a commit message, I'm trying to answer the question, why did I do this change? All right. But usually, like, there are a few best practices or something. We can see that my tests failed. So if I click, there should be a link here, I think. Details, sorry. So details. This will take me to the app layer, and we'll see that the last two tests that I added failed, proving me right that there is a bug. So I won't have time to do that, but what I would do is to go back, fix these tests so they pass, and once I'm done with that, I can rebase my pull request and hopefully agree with the maintainer that this is a good change. So AppWare is a service for continuous integration. It's free for open source projects. And what it does is that you put a settings file in your repository, and you put some environment variables on your account on AppWare. And every time you commit something, it will clone your whole repository. It will create a new VM in Azure based out of an image that you can choose in your configuration. It will, in that VM, boot it up, clone the whole repository, and run your tests. So it will run my test, and once it's done, it will just remove the VM, and the VM is kind of isolated and so on. So it's pretty secure, and it's free for open source projects. But if you do the free version, you don't get like a pre-staged VM, so it takes a couple of minutes for it to spin up a VM and boot and so on. But it's great, and the only thing I have to do is add this YAML file. So I sign in with my GitHub account on AppWare. I don't even have to sign up. And I have a file. So this is the settings file. And it's YAML. It basically says that I want the OS image containing WMF5. And then I want to run and install scripts which installs Pester using Chocolatey. And then I have a build script which will prepare stuff. And I have test scripts for running my tests, and I have a deploy script for updating or uploading my module to the gallery.
So if the test runs, it uploads to the gallery automatically?
Correct. And also, I think I have that in this one. Let's see. Yeah, so I have here an if AppWare repo tag equals true. So this is an environment variable created by AppWare, and it will only return true if my commit is a tag. So if I create a tag in GitHub, it will deploy to the gallery. And if I do a regular commit, it will just run the tests. And I also check if the get package provider command is available to make sure that I'm running PowerShell version 5, or that I have the package module installed so I can run it. Otherwise, I will get an error. And if something fails in my tests, the whole deploy part won't run at all. So this is really convenient. And I also have a new version of this one, but this is an old part where I recreate my module manifest and use a new module version here. So if the repo is a tag, I'm just taking the tag name and injecting it as the version somewhere here, module version. So I create a new module manifest using the version used in my tag. So if I create a tag named 2.1.4, it will create a new module with a module version 2.1.4 and upload it. Secrets are stored in a variable in AppWare. Great point. So on my AppWare account, I will add my API key for the GitHub for my GitHub account, and it will be stored in an environment variable which I can access from my scripts, but I don't have to have it in source control, which would be bad. All right, so once I'm done with this pull request, and once everything is, so let's see. Yeah, so once I'm done with this and everything is passing and so on, the maintainer will hopefully merge it, and then I'm done. Once I'm done, I will remove the branch from my fork, and if I don't intend to do more changes like in the near future, I will actually remove this whole repository, because there is no point of having a fork just lying around. So I'm going to go to settings. And down here in the danger zone, there is the delete this repository. So if I click here, I have to enter the name of the repositories to confirm that I want to remove it, and then just click remove, and it'll remove it for me. And it takes just seconds to create a new fork if I want to commit something else. So I have a lot of slides showing this. Yes?
Could you also show how the file system behaves when you
Absolutely, thank you, Stein. So let's head back. I'm going to open up beef. So here's my repository. Let's put it over there. The .git folder is the as a hidden system folder, which contains all the metadata for Git. So that's where all my repository data goes. And if I go back here, let's see if we can just might work. So if I create a new file, for instance.